Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Bryce Koon here on Swarm Talk, presented by Section 103, your number one Georgia Tech show that you need to check out each and every single week. Tonight's a little bit different. We're here on Wednesday instead of Thursday, had some scheduling conflicts that we needed to work out and we need to work through, and so we're here. Georgia Tech, we're going to talk about it. Just a disappointing all around effort. I want to open up with something, and then we'll get into this game preview against Miami. This is going to be a tough matchup, and I'm going to detail why. I'm going to talk a little bit of the reasons why I think that, Georgia Tech's going to have to overcome some significant things to be able to win this football game. And who knows? It could happen, but we're going to talk about this. But hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you are in the live chat, make sure to let us know how you feel. Get your comments in, get your questions, get your concerns about this team. Make sure to like the video, make sure to share the video, and make sure, most importantly, to subscribe to the channel completely free. We're going to be having our college football preview tomorrow. And also, if you haven't noticed, if you're a fan of the game NCAA 14 or college football revamped, Will Mannis has started his Auburn dynasty. He's going to be kicking that off again on Thursday night before our live college football show. And don't worry, year two, season number 2 of the Georgia Tech dynasty, coming off a 9-4 record and a Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl win over Alabama, will be starting next week. That's going to start hopefully Sunday night at the normal scheduled time. Now, a couple programming notes. The reason it's going to be starting Sunday night is because right after the game on Saturday, we're going to come back, and about 15, 20 minutes post-game, we're going to be going live recapping what just happened against Miami, win or loss. So we're going to take your comments and your questions and your concerns. But let's get into the topic of today. Once again, our presenting sponsor, Section 103, they do a fantastic job. You need to check out everything they have going on over there. Some of the best gear that you're going to find if you're a Georgia Tech fan. Head over to section103.com. Use code Crowded Booth for 10% off your first order today. So back here on Swarm Talk, my name is Bryce Koon, and if you are tuning in for the first time, we welcome you in. If you're a longtime listener, first-time interactor on the comment section, we appreciate you as well. Obviously, we didn't get to talk too much about this on Sunday evening. If you guys missed, it was a heck of a time. We may start doing some more of those film breakdowns over on Twitch. YouTube doesn't really allow us to do that, but that's fine. We're going to try to get some of that stuff. I wanted to address something, and I've got some notes down here in front of me. I got the handy-dandy America's pencil. No Ticonderoga today, but we've got a number 2 gold pencil. And it's, does Kevin Scherer moving to defensive coordinator change anything for this team? Look, there is no doubt, and I said this on Sunday, there's no doubt that something was wrong with the way this team was playing defense. Not just because they lost to Ole Miss, not just because they lost to Louisville, or necessarily, I mean, even though they lost to Bowling Green, but just watching every single game this team has played in, something's just felt off. There hasn't been a step up. The development of the linebacker position, that's something I want to touch on. And I think the question is, how much does moving Kevin Scherer to defensive coordinator change anything? Now, look, this could pay off. This entire segment could be proved mute as early as this weekend. We could have some answers on this. But that being said, I do have a cause for concern in this, and there's several reasons why. One, the demotion of Andrew Thacker. Let's discuss that here for a second. Andrew Thacker gets demoted. Now, we know this happened on Sunday before our live show, but I wanted to spend some more time just kind of looking at this and musing over this before we really talked about it. Why is Thacker not off the staff? What benefit does Andrew Thacker have as being now demoted to the safeties coach? It's a dead man walking situation. It would be one beyond my wildest dreams and imaginations that if Andrew Thacker is going to be on this staff in 2024, this is a dead man walking situation. Thacker reportedly has told the players, we were able to talk with some people close to the program, that, hey, he really appreciated the opportunity to coach these guys. They had moments, obviously, but obviously, he appreciates the chance and the opportunity. We all know he was brought in under Collins. Whatever. I don't agree with keeping him on the staff. I think this was a highly emotional move based off of potential pressure from upstairs. That being said, Kevin Scherer's elevated from linebackers to defensive coordinator. Now, if you go to the Wikipedia page, if you go to the resume, if you go to the if you just go to what he's done, his past, look, it's a nice little resume on paper. And obviously, Kevin Scherer, I highlighted as I thought it was a good hire in thinking that this is a guy that brings a championship pedigree to Georgia Tech. However, through the first 5 games of the season, there is a very strong argument, and I'll make it, in fact, that the linebacking core has been the weakest spot of this entire team. Now, is that due to talent or is that due to coaching? Now, we're going to paint both pictures before we really get into this preview, so stay buckled in. If it's due to coaching, let's take that angle first. If it's due to coaching and Kevin Shear's not able to get the most out of the linebacking core, obviously they brought in a lot to the portal, had Trinigas Tatum, Kyle Efford, we've seen a little bit of as well. If it's due to that, what's really going to change if you elevate that to defensive coordinator? Because if one specific position group it's not sinking in with them, the thought process for me personally, and let us know that it's going to sink in from a whole unit, it just doesn't seem that likely to be that type of a transition. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. So it's something that I don't necessarily I don't get. Now, if the linebackers are playing out of their mind, this makes sense because then it lines up with the resume. But because the lack of production there, it I can't follow that. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me. Now, let's take the other stab at this. You might say, well, Bryce, maybe it's just the players. They don't have the talent at linebacker, or they don't have the guys they're playing are, and we've talked about this. I don't think they've settled. I don't think they've found 2 guys that have really been able to do that. Okay. Well, then that tells me there needs to be personnel changes. So if Scherer moves up, and we already know that this staff, outside of a couple of names, is not really going to change the personnel, once again, what is the long term, the big picture effect that Kevin Scherer can have if you're not changing the personnel? So either way that you frame this argument, I struggle with understanding how this is going to see an immediate impact. I think that there are foundational problems with the defense in terms of you don't have the talent at defensive line that you maybe did in a guy like Keon White. They've got pieces, but the pieces don't play consistently enough at a high level. At linebacker, you are desperately missing at least the bare minimum of what Charlie Thomas and Ace Ely were able to provide. And then on the back end, let's talk about that for a second. On the back end, you haven't been solid at the cornerback position. You have 3 guys playing majority of the snaps in Kenan Johnson, who has played a ton of snaps, very high snap count through 5 games. You have Amari Harvey, who's been like the one guy to spell either, and then Spider Sims starting on the opposite side. Outside of those 3, you've got a guy like Rodney Shelley that hasn't seen a ton of playing time at the position. You've got a guy like Kenyatta Watson the second, who played early on in the season, but has not seen the field at the cornerback position since the South Carolina State game. So from all of these things, if the personnel doesn't change, why does the coaching matter? To me, it's a parallel conversation here. You can say, well, either argument that you have or someone gives you, you can say, well, the coaching changed, but the coaching at the individual position wasn't good. Well, Bryce, they don't have the talent. Well, if they don't change the personnel, then they're just going to continue to beat their head against the wall with this defensive group. And I just don't, that's where I don't see that. Also, another head scratching move. A lot was made under the previous regime of having a separate safeties and cornerbacks coach. And if we're honest, when you go back to the press conferences and the conversations surrounding unifying those groups under Brent Key, it was seen as that's the best fit. That's what you have to do. It creates unity. It creates uniform instruction, uniform coaching with what they want to do. Key said that with his own words. That being said, now you've just split them up again by taking, once again, your demoted defensive coordinator and placing him at safeties, something that you kind of took a shot at that the previous regime that you are also under did. Now, in no way, shape, form, or fashion, words are hard, am I trying to insinuate that there is something that we're trying to stand up or stand on some ground for the last regime. No, you've very clear. Everyone knows my feelings and my thoughts on what happened then. That being said, seeing kind of the trickle down effect of what's happening and being able to kind of look at some of the different parameters and talk with people close to the program on the surface level, folks on the different social media pages are going to tell you that, well, Kevin Sherrod did this, Kevin Sherrod did that. He was a part of this coaching staff. He was a part of a championship coaching staff there, and they're going to say, yeah, of course it has to happen to be better. But when you look at what this roster has, when you look at what they've done here, for me, I don't see it. And look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they go into Miami and they allow 13 points and Tech wins this game 24-13. That would be fantastic. I don't see it happening. I don't think that in 1 week you can change so much without changing, overhauling everything and being open to all types of change. So it's going to be very interesting. So does Kevin Sherrod moving to DC change anything? I don't know. And I've seen these comments. I don't really personally want to get into it because I think it's a lot of hearsay in the sense of it's speculation. It's a speculation that did Key expect this the entire time? Did you expect to replace the defensive coordinator the entire time? If you did, and I do not believe that Brent Key has the I believe that he has the foresight to be able to do this. I would like to believe that. If he did, then the question would have to arise. You were willing to sacrifice not only just two tough losses to Ole Miss and Louisville, but you were willing to sacrifice one of the worst losses in program history to Bowling Green in the fashion that you did that. And you watched the film with me on Sunday night. It was awful. It was terrible. So that being said, I just before we kind of get into this preview, and this game, this is going to focus on this, but this is a talking point that I think I really wanted to hit on, been thinking and developing over the past couple of days. I wanted to add this in as we kind of get ready for this preview. I love the hope. I love the passion that college football brings. And I love the hope and the passion that the Georgia Tech fan base brings. I think that we've come to a crossroads in this Georgia Tech fandom of where we need to be able to accept two different things or understand two different things. Let me put it like this. One, you don't ever have to accept the standard of losing. You never should. A Power 5 program like Georgia Tech should never accept the standard of losing consistently. You probably should accept the reality of where you are. The reality of where this program is they are still a long ways away from learning how to win consistently and doing that. Putting those words into action. That is still a far off thing, and that's what last week showed us. So those are the two parameters. Never accept it. We're not accepting the standard of losing, the title of being a loser, but we are also facing the reality of whether it's the coaching is not quite mature enough in the sense of Brent Key being that first year full-time head coach, or whether it is the roster is not where it needs to be to compete consistently from a depth perspective and just overall talent. That's the reality of the situation. You're not there. So I think that's very, very important for us to understand. I encourage folks on our show that watch and listen to understand that you can understand both things and it be fine. You don't accept a standard of losing. I don't accept a standard of losing, even if they're not ready, especially to a program like Bowling Green. Absolutely no disrespect, but you should not be losing that game. No ifs, ands, or buts. I'm not mad that you lost to Louisville. I'm not mad that you lost to Ole Miss. Uh, I'm mad that you lost to Bowling Green because that goes against a lot of the things that have been preached, had been, sitting in front of a microphone, had been told to the fan base, told to the media about what this team's inner desire and what their mantra, what their identity were going to be. And the biggest being toughness. And we have not seen it yet. We have not. We've not seen it yet consistently. And so I think that's where the fan base is frustrated. I echo that sentiment. That's where we sit with this. So let's get into the preview. Thanks so much for kind of, tuning into this opening monologue. But man, we got to talk about this. The first key for this game, the defense has to get pressure. Tyler Van Dyke has seemingly found his stride in what he is able to want to do as a quarterback. You obviously, their schedule hasn't been very impressive in the sense of what Miami has done. They knocked out Miami, Ohio 38-3. They took down Texas A&M, who I think Texas A&M is a contender in the SEC this year. as far as getting to Atlanta. They beat them by double digits. They beat Bethune-Cookman 48-7, and they beat Temple 41-7. Now, a lot of Tech fans will sit there and say, but yes, they haven't played anybody. But what I will tell you, and it's something that Tech did not do last week, is they took care and they played the opponents that they played the way they were supposed to play them. It shows a sense of urgency and understanding of what championship football should be. And it feels like that Mario Cristobal is starting to have an impact on this group. We take a look at Tyler Van Dyke. Played in obviously 4 games. Miami's coming off a bye week. I think that just benefits them even more. He, folks, has a nice 11-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 1,000 yards, a little over 1,000 yards, and averaging 260 a game. Emory Williams has played in a little bit of games, but not too much from there as well. A completion percentage of, I can't do the math, but just under 73%. So you got to like that as well, of what they've been able, or over 74%. On the ground, they've got Henry Parrish, 42 attempts, 337 yards, but they spread it out. Parrish with 42 rushes, Chaney with 27, A.J. Allen with 26, Mark Fletcher with 24. 3 guys over 130 yards rushing on the season. I think it's going to be something where, look, they also, as a team, they average 6.4 yards per carry. Is that a product of where they've made strides as a team, or is it a product of their schedule? We're going to find out as well. Xavier Restrepo, nice receiver for them. 24 catches, 355 yards, 14.8 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. He averages just under 89 yards a game receiving. They got Jacoby George, Colby Young, 3 guys over 240 yards receiving, and all of those guys have at least 2 touchdown receptions as well. As a whole for this offense, this is, for me, if we're just kind of talking big picture here, I think that you have to get pressure. This defense, the secondary, absolutely terrifies me coming into this game against Tyler Van Dyke, because you have not shown an ability to consistently stop anybody that you have played in the passing game. For Georgia Tech, the stats speak for themselves. The 120th, 117th, whatever it is, total defense. It is what it is. It is a realistic. It's real. That's what we can say. It's absolutely real of what they've been able to do. That being said, you have to play this game like you played against Wake Forest. Are the penalties going to be there? Probably. Are you going to have to play like a bat out of hell? Probably. But you are going to have to cook something up, because you cannot rush 3, you cannot rush 4 and expect to win this football game. I don't see it unless Miami stumbles over themselves. You're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to be the aggressor. We watched the film on Sunday. Goes into that Kevin Sherrod mood change there. My concern is, are you going to play physical enough and play aggressive enough to go beat a team that has ACC title aspirations? You may think it's a joke. You may think it's funny because Miami consistently trips them over themselves. They believe it. A lot of the Miami prognosticators believe that this is a game where they should absolutely dominate you. The spread in Vegas say so as well. 21-point spread on this game. That being said, I just think that, third down conversions is something Georgia Tech has really, really struggled with. Miami's 50% on the year in that. Red zone touchdown attempts, they're just really good. I don't even really know what else to say about this. I mean, they're just efficient offensively. So the defense has to get pressure in this game. You've got to be able to create something up front, some chaos, a little bit of hectic, and put Tyler Van Dyke in a position where he's uncomfortable in the pocket. And then maybe, obviously, that's a recipe for an upset bid. We move on to the offense here. What does the offense have to do? Well, one, it's got to be consistent. I talked about this. It's not all on the defense this year. While Haynes King has played tremendous, one of the more undervalued, if not the most undervalued transfer quarterback in this last cycle and in the transfer period, I've been disappointed with the progression and the ability to call plays within game flow of Buster Faulkner in this offense. It seems like the script is there for the first couple of drives. And once you get into, I guess, the last play on the play sheet that you've diagnosed, because, for folks that don't know, coordinators spend all week and staff and analysts spend all week. They will diagnose plays and they will call a game. Essentially, maybe whether it's 20 plays, the first 30 plays of the game, or not 20, 30 plays, first 3 drives, first 2 or 3 drives of the game. And you have your planned out schemes that you want to go with. After that, you adjust to what is happening in the game. The Georgia Tech has not been able to do that. The Jackets haven't been able to do that consistently and have any type of positive effect on their team in that. So, been really, really discouraged with that. I think that's something that has to change. You have to, if you take a lead, keep your foot on the gas pedal. You can't have a game like you did against Louisville where it's a dynamic one quarter and that second quarter. It can't be where you kind of string someone along like you did a little bit in the Wake Forest game, although you kept a healthy lead. It just wasn't necessarily you didn't once again just didn't feel like it was a keep your foot on the gas pedal type of game. So I think offensively, you've got to be able to do some things that you haven't. Now, the good news is Georgia Tech's really, really good offensively. I mean, you look at what the numbers they've been able to do as a whole. It's really nice. I mean, I like what they've been able to do as a team, as a group. Haynes King, obviously a guy that has got over 1,400 yards, 15 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. You could make an argument that 2 of them, the one in Louisville game, the one last weekend against Bowling Green that popped off the guy's helmet or head, that it really didn't matter. You got to get Jamal Haynes, going early. A guy like Trey Cooley needs to once again emerge. At this point, though, this is the biggest key for me. Eric Singleton Jr. is not going to surprise Miami on tape by any means. They know who he is, and I guarantee they're game planning for him. What can you do? Can you build upon a guy like Dominic Blaylock, who had a nice game, one of the few bright spots in the loss to Bowling Green? And then overall, Malik Rutherford, Christian Leary, getting those guys more involved. Is Chase Lane going to be available? Stuff that, I think that as a team, you've got to be more consistent in the game plan and being able to move along with the ebbs and flows of this ball game. Altogether, I think that Georgia Tech has a chance. And if we kind of get to the final session here, the final thoughts and predictions. Georgia Tech's an underdog for a reason, and I'm going to read this right here. This is from a publication that is talking. It's on the Miami side of things, and this is kind of what they talk about when. And I'll read it. It's stateoftheu.com. They're obviously looking ahead. They've got a game against North Carolina next weekend that's going to determine a lot for the ACC that they're excited about. But they do not understate the importance of winning this game. Here it is in quote. We go, and Lordy, that had better happen after what happened with the Yellow Jackets on Saturday. The Bees found themselves trailing lowly Bowling Green by a score of 38-14 in the third quarter before eventually losing 38-27. Tech had a decent showing to start the season against Louisville, dropping a scrappy game to the Cardinals. Then they also won at Wake Forest 2 weeks ago, which is a pretty solid win for them. However, you can't lose to Bowling Green, and you sure as heck can't lose to Bowling Green. Doors blown off type of loss. Embarrassing. It's a very Miami versus Middle Tennessee State in 2022 type of loss. And as such, the Canes should treat the Jackets in 2023 the way that Blue Raiders team treated the Canes back in 2022, end quote. Miami thinks it should be a convincing win. For their purposes, it needs to be a convincing win. No ifs, ands, buts about it. They had an opportunity for guys to get healed. Henry Parrish, Cameron Kitchens as well to get ready to go for conference play. This is their first conference game of the season. That being said, Georgia Tech can score some points. But the fact that they're giving it up so easily defensively, I do not believe that 1 week is going to change that. I would like to think it would. I have Miami winning this game. My final score, Miami 34, Georgia Tech 21. I do think the Jackets can cover the spread, but I do think that this is going to be a 2-score game. I think Miami just has too much. They control the clock, and they do have a pass rush that can make Haynes King's life difficult if this offense is still not clicking, especially offensively. You can't disappear if you're a Georgia Tech's offense in this game, and that's one of the big problems. This is an offense that still kind of has the training wheels on, learning to be who they are, but the problem is the defense has been so bad that the training wheels have had to be yanked off, and now you have had to essentially say, we have to match whatever their offense is going to match. I just don't think you're built for that, and I don't think you're at that consistent point yet as well. But hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm not super high on this game. Let me know down in the comments what you think below. We will catch you Saturday night, post-game, live show reaction. We might even open up the phone lines. Dr. Bob might need to pop in and offer a few encouraging words. We'll see what happens. Make sure to join the Discord, all the conversations regarding Georgia Tech or anything else. Subscribe to the channel. And whether you're watching this on YouTube, listening to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere that you get that audio, we appreciate you for being a part of the Crowded Booth. We'll catch you next time here on an episode of Swarm Talk presented by Section 103. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday evening.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.